Hey guys! So today I have a little bit of a tutorial for you. I haven't done this kind of routine in a while. This is going to be how I contour my face. It's an updated version. I do things a little bit differently than how I used to. I go over the highlight, the contour, the blush, the placement, why I do it a certain way on my face, my jawline, my nose, the whole shebang. So if you're curious how I do it on myself, then let's go. Okay, I'm doing like 12 videos right now, but I wanted to do an updated contour routine. So I do have foundation on. I don't have my concealer on yet. This foundation is one that dries down. So because of that, I'm going to spray my face with this Bare With Me Prime Set Refresh spray. And I'm doing that because I'm going in with a cream and I don't want it to be stuck to any dry bits. I like the base to be a little more hydrated when I'm blending out any cream on top. It's just a little bit easier. So I'm just going to spray my face with this. Okay, and the foundation, or the contour that I'm using is from Anastasia. It is the foundation stick in the shade Contour, in the shade Fawn. I used to draw it on, but lately I've just been putting my brush on it and then applying it that way. I find I have a little bit more control, and I'm just using a brush that's a little bit fluffy, but it's definitely dense enough to place the product on. So I like to start by just pushing it in. And you want to go, so a lot of people typically say, go like that and that's where you want to contour. I would say go above that, because if you contour in that spot, it almost drags your face down. You want to lift when you're contouring. So my natural shade contour is like a little bit lower, and I'm going a little bit higher than that so that it lifts my cheekbones. And I'm just going a little bit at a time. You don't want this to be a stark shade, because then it looks unnatural. I think this is a really beautiful shade for more fair skin. They have some other shades for deeper skin as well. The Fenty ones are really good too, the amber one. I probably will get that one next. But so that's one cheek down. Looks soft, looks natural, doesn't look like I have product there. So now I'm going to do my jaw. I have a very weak jaw, if you will, and it's very high up. Like, it kind of just goes straight to my ear. I don't have a big swoop there, and like any slight movement, I look like I have a double chin. So I want to hide that. So I'm doing the same thing, and first I'm kind of hugging the bone that I do have there, because there is a shadow there. It's just not strong and it's not defined all the time. So this way, if I do make a face, it will stay a little bit more defined as compared to without it. So I'm going to make a face and kind of pull it down the area that sticks out. So now, if you go too heavy, you can tell there's makeup on, but if you do it just light enough, it keeps it more pushed back. Whereas on this side, like, you can tell right away, I've got a little bit of like a double chin happening. But over here, not as noticeable. And then looking on, it does look a little more refined. Not crazy, but again, you don't want it to be super noticeable. I don't have a large chin, but I feel like sometimes it needs more color to it to kind of even out the whole face. So I'll put a tiny bit on my brush and go around the kind of curve of my chin. Just add some color back, especially if you use a full coverage foundation. So I'm going to do the other side of my face, and then I will come back to show you how I do my nose. I don't typically do my forehead anymore because I do have bangs, but the main bits that I would do are kind of at the very tops of my temple, like right by my hairline. I don't have the biggest forehead, but I also don't have a small forehead, so I like to make it look the tiniest bit shorter. Hopefully you can tell this side of my face looks a little more defined, but still soft and natural. And this side looks like a potato. More defined potato. And then I'll show you how I highlight with concealer. I will also sometimes go in with a more precise brush just to deepen the very hollow part of the contour. It's always deepest towards the back and bottom, so I'll just do it a little bit more concentrated in that area, again, for a little bit more of a natural look. Okay, now I'm going in with a concealer that's a little bit lighter than my skin, and this is the e.l.f. 16 Hour Camo Concealer. Now, I don't like a super like Kim K Instagram makeup type of under eye, so I will mainly place this on the inner corner and then see where I need to go after that. And I just blend it out with a sponge usually. And I pat it in that spot for a minute. You know, really make sure that coverage is there because that's where I really want the brightness. And then I will bring it down the side of my nose, around my nostril, and then out to the top of my cheekbone. So I'm almost creating, like, I know a lot of people do a triangle, but I kind of curve it around the cheek. I just think it's a little more flattering on my face, especially because I don't have super full cheeks unless I'm smiling. Like, my face is fairly flat, so I feel like giving that curve where I could put, you know, more color and or something, it's just more flattering. So I'll do the same on the other side. Then I will take a tiny bit on my chin, and I like to do the between my eyes just to make that area even brighter. And for these spots, I don't want it to go too far away from where I placed it, so I do kind of pat right on top of it for a while before I start to blend it out. Any excess I will bring down the center of my nose, and then I'm taking the tiniest bit of the concealer, I'm wiping most of it off, and dotting it on the sides of the tip of my nose. Just because my nose, the middle part, the bone, sticks out a lot, but the sides don't, so it makes my nose look a little more bulbous instead of like button-like. So I let that set for a little bit and then very lightly tap that out. Hopefully you can tell that already made a big difference for my nose, but I do have one final step. So I'm using this very tiny tapered brush from Morphe. It's the M506, and I'm just very lightly getting some of that contour stick on it. I make a weird face. I go like this, and it kind of pinches my nose in, so I can really hug that bone. And the main part, let me zoom in. The main part that I want to fix is my nose, the tip of my nose. So I don't know if you could see, but it looks like it kind of goes like this. And I want it to look like it kind of goes in here instead of continuing up, if that makes sense. So I will bring the shadow forward, and then the part that sticks up too high, I will go on top of that to try and make it look like it's receding, and then kind of wrap around the tip. It is hard to tell unless I have both sides done, but it does help tremendously. So see this bit here? I don't want that to be noticeable. And then I'm also going on the bottom because my nose kind of starts to curve down right there and I don't want it to. Then with no product added on my sponge, I'm just going to tap that in, and hopefully you can tell it made a big difference, at least for me. So now I will go in with my powders, and for most of my face I just use a pressed powder. This is from Colourpop. It's the No Filter Sheer Pressed Powder in the shade Fair. Just a fluffy brush, and I pat that over everything. And now to further highlight my under eyes, I use the Morphe Brightening Powder in the shade Brightening Pink. And I just use a kind of small fluffy brush. This is an eyeshadow brush from NYX Cosmetics. I get a little bit on and pat it into place. This doesn't brighten a ton, but the pink helps correct any darkness that maybe corrector and concealer didn't do. And it doesn't darken, which is a problem I have. Being fair, a lot of powders tend to darken. So pretty much anywhere I put that concealer, I'm going in with that shade. Now I have a very small eyeshadow brush, and I'm going in with that powder. And this is where I bake. So I'll go down the center of my nose. Not all the way down, because I do want to keep that shadow in that area that I don't naturally have. And then on the tip of my nose, right on the sides of that bone. And I like a lot up here, again, because I like that to be a super bright area. So I'm going to let that sit, and now is when I go in with bronzer, blush, and highlight. So first I'm going in with bronzer, and this is the Fenty Inda Sun Bronzer. Now, to prevent anything from getting muddy, you kind of want to go on top of the things you've put down already. So I'm just using this angled brush, and I'm very lightly going between that highlight and contour with this shade, just to add a little bit of warmth. You don't want to bring it down all the way, because that would kind of defeat the purpose of putting that cool shade down, and it wouldn't look like a contour anymore. It would just look like a muddy mess. So I'm going right on top of it, hopefully you could tell. And I do a little bit on the tip of my nose, just to add color to the center of my face. And I'll use this brush to wipe off that powder, and a little on the bottom of my chin. Okay, so now I'm going in with highlight, and I'm using the Hello Halo from Wet n Wild. This is the shade Highlight Bling. And this highlighting brush from Morphe, this is the E61. And this, I'm going at the very top, and I don't want to bring this down too low, because again, that's how you get a muddy look. So I'm first pressing this in, and then I will gently glide over it. And that smaller brush I used before, I'm actually going to take that shade and put it on the inner corner of my eyes. Like I said, I like a lot of brightness between my eyes. Sometimes shimmers aren't the best for me on the inner corner, because there will be a cast and almost make it look darker, but this one I've found doesn't have a cast, so that's why I'm using this one. And it's not too crazy, and I'm also placing that on my Cupid's bow, and a little bit on these sides of that bone on the tip of my nose, my eyes. Now, I don't like to bring it down my whole nose, because I feel like it makes that bone even more obvious, and it looks bad. So now it's time for blush. Today I think I'm going to go in with Passion. It's a very pigmented blush, so I'm going to be pretty light-handed with it, and I'm using this tulip-shaped brush from Morphe. It's the E3. So I like to pat the side of the brush in, like just patting it, tapping it off, and then I will try and place it almost between the bronzer and highlight, and I like to start at the apple of my cheek and pull up, just because I find that placement most flattering on my face. I try and make my cheeks look a little fuller, a little more, I don't know, friendly. So I will place and pull up and then pat. I really like a super youthful looking cheek. It's not for everyone. Placement for blush is very particular for some people, so. But now I'm going in with that same brush I used to set under my eyes, taking a little bit of that powder and just going right underneath and kind of curving upward just to soften any edges there might be. Okay, final step is to spray one more time. And at this point you can add a little bit more highlight if you want. I'm just going to do it so you can see when you apply highlight to a more sticky base, it does look a little more wet. I know some people prefer that. And another thing I will do sometimes is I will take a like shimmery blush, like this shade here. It's a little bit of a different tone than what I'm going for, but I just want to show you. I'll put the tiniest bit right on the apple of my cheek. So I have more of a kind of well-rounded sheen, and it gives me a little bit of highlight when I smile. And I'll just take that brush I used to set my whole face with no extra product to blend it in. But yeah, that is how I contour my face. If you have any questions, leave them down below. Yeah, I'm gonna try and finish this look and do a bunch of intros and stuff.